Welcome back to another video on my 2007 GT500. So in today's video, we have a lot to do. We are putting the transmission back into the car. Last video we got the RXT clutch installed, or RXT1200 rather. So we're picking up where we left off. Transmission's rebuilt. Everything is pretty much prepped to go to put it back on the car. So I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and get down to the ground. We go ahead and slide the transmission underneath, get everything lined up, get it mounted on the transmission jack, and then start getting things lined up to go back on. It's going to be interesting. There's a few areas I'm a little bit worried about trying not to mess up. So we do have to figure out how to get the MGW Gen 2 shifter on. I know people do it without pulling the trans all the time, so there's got to be a way to get it on nicely. The service manual says to just attach it and then put it up first, but I had to rotate mine pretty far, so I want to make sure we can get it in, and then we'll worry about attaching the shifter next. On top of that, also something to be aware of in the back of your head, be very careful not to pinch any of the wiring. As you'll see when we get under there, it's very tight and it can easily get pinched on the top of the transmission. So be careful about that. And last, I need to make sure all my transmission bolts are going to the right spots because some of them are different lanes, and I want to make sure we don't mess anything up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we got the transmission up, I just got the clutch in, and this is our rebuilt trans. So if you watch my videos before, you'll know what I'm talking about. Old gears, old stuff like that having issues. We got our trans jack. Got to slide it under the car as is, and then we'll put it on the jack after the fact. And then new drive shaft going in. That's the old one, although it does look shinier. It had a bunch of play in the joint up there, so we don't want that. And let's go ahead and get this sucker into the car. So if you're wondering why we're doing this, second gear lockout is my main problem. And then I had a lot of clutch chatter going on, and specifically, the lockout was really bad at the drag strip, and I could feel it kind of like grinding every once in a while. I went into third gear or sometimes fourth. Reverse was almost impossible to get into, so we did find some wear. Go check them out in the videos, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing in. All right, so if you're curious, just investigating real quick. So the two longest bolts, you'll notice there's one longer than the other. The long ones go into these slots. The ones with the actual eyelets here, small, small, small. These two are big. These two get the long bolts. So if you're curious, that's where they wind up at. Make sure everything's in order, so that goes there. And I just bolted it into the car, just screwing them in to make sure that everything is lined up the way it's supposed to be. And we're good. So on the car, you can also see the ears on these two bolts are quite a bit longer than the ears on the rest of the transmission block, or on the engine block, so that's how you know. And then these two tiny ones go down here, and then everything else is equal length, shorter one. These two, and this one. So, yep, that's how we do it. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolled underneath now. Now, one more thing, the factory did say the manual said to go ahead and grease up the splines. So we don't want too much on there because it's gonna get pushed back with a clutch, but we do want some on there so everything's nice and happy. And I'll show you guys the heavy duty red bearing grease, should be fine. All right, so took a little bit of messing around, but finally got this thing back on. I did refill the transmission, by the way, so it does have new fluid in it. Yeah, there we have it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting this thing hoisted up. I know where these things go now, so I'm not gonna keep them in the car for no reason. It's out of the way. But yeah, so according to the instructions, they do want you to hook up the bleeder with this clip right here before totally bolting it in for whatever reason. So this is gonna be one long time lapse of just trying to get this sucker lined up and in, and then tightening bolts down, and I'll tell you what the torque specs are once they're in. It's too bad, it's like 38, 39 foot-pounds, something like that, but I'll double check once she's in. So without further ado, let's keep going. All right, so my GoPro ended up dying, but I finally got the transmission to seat. So first, this wiring harness, of course, even knowing that it was going to try and get stuck, got stuck on the top, and I finally got it. You can see it's freely moving on the other side. I don't know what the heck it got hooked onto, to be honest. There was something, I don't know. I was using a long rod I had to try and unstick it, and I wound up having to drop it, pull it slightly back, get it unstuck with my hand, wrapping it around the side, and then get it in. But yeah, it's nice and free now. Just good grief, that was awful. I think I've been down here for a good solid almost 3 hours, just literally with it in that one spot, but we finally got it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working all these bolts. It's right now it's just on the pegs, that's why it's not fully sandwiched, but start tightening stuff down. And when we get this thing tightened in, it's probably gonna be another couple hours of messing with those top bolts and everything, but we're getting there, one thing at a time. All right, we just got our little pin and clutch line on. So now I just got to put in the rest of these bolts, and I think you guys have seen enough time lapse doing with this transmission, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the bolts in without camera, and then we'll meet up afterwards as we start doing more stuff. All right, took a minute to go ahead and put the shifter at least installed in the front half anyway back there. So I wanted to get the trans jack out of here because it's just extremely annoying to try and do work with that thing in the way. So I have all the bolts on this side of the transmission in, top one side and side, torque down. I just got to get the couple on this side and then we'll be done there. The starter back in, and we're slowly getting there one thing at a time. But yeah, we're just kind of cruising along, I guess. So obviously this is loose, not tightened up all the way. I just wanted to get, like I said, the trans jack out, and I'm gonna keep working on these bolts. Well, I figured I'd come up for the depths briefly from underneath this car and making some good progress. So transmission is bolted back to the engine. Cross member, as you saw, is now mostly bolted up. Needs to get tightened down, obviously. The shifter is on the transmission side, it's not on the body side, so got to go ahead and grab a couple of things still. I'm gonna get finished getting the whole transmission bolted up. Pardon my mess over here. This is our new MGW shifter ball, which looks pretty sweet. But where we're at with this. So these are all parts for the MGW. These are the two tail pieces I was looking for, so we got to get that together. And yeah, we're definitely making some progress. But on the engine side, went ahead and bolted down the two motor mounts once again, so they're back together. I could really put the intake back on now too. I'm kind of tired of standing underneath on my back at the moment, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on some stuff up here real quick, and then we'll get the starter in next. That's the last main hurdle, is getting that starter back in. Once that is back in, it should be, knock on wood, relatively smooth sailing. So keep on going. Let's put you on time lapse, get this engine stuff together, and then we'll keep going. Starter's back in. hooked up, back to electrical. So I think we're done with messing around with stuff up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up the cross member next, and then we'll be getting our shifter back half parts in, I guess, and drive shaft. All right, so all I'm gonna do up here, there's 2 set screws that get tightened up if I can get the right sized Allen key, which I don't think I grabbed. No worries, but anyway, there's 2 set screws right here that'll hold in those 2 pieces. And this thing feels awesome. I truly cannot wait. It's gonna be awesome. Hell yeah. Just the next day, I went ahead and took a break yesterday after getting the transmission bolted back up. That absolutely sucked. I probably spent a solid 3 hours underneath the car just trying to fiddle with it. That stupid wiring harness on top would not get unstuck. Try to pull, try to try that stuff, try to get it out. I eventually had to tighten it, back it off again, move it out once again, and eventually I was able to get the wiring harness out of the way and the transmission slipped in properly. Just took a lot of finagling to get the angle just right. If you have one of those transmission jacks I'm using, I highly suggest you guys use it. Trying to do this with that one, I think would be borderline impossible. It's just not fun to get up and in there. So that's in. MGW is in, feels great. So before we go and put the rest of the interior back together, I'm gonna go get the bottom of the car buttoned up and then we'll get the interior stuff done. So really all we gotta do really is we gotta put the drive shaft back in and then the exhaust back on. I think the underside's done. Oh, and our new O2 sensors. And then we're done with that side. Then we can move to the interior, knock that out, and really the car should be ready to go back down. So we're just about there. I did pump my clutch. You gotta pump it probably, I don't know, 200-300 times. I was just sitting there with my hand just cranking on the clutch pedal, pushing all the way to the floor and back up, and it eventually bled and got all the air out of the system, and it feels pretty solid now. So clutch is already pretty good to go. Didn't lose any fluid or anything, so topped off. But yeah, so other than that, let's go ahead and get after it. I'm gonna go get the drive shaft in next, and then we'll get the exhaust on. check it out. So drive shaft is now installed. Everything's nice and tightened down. I've tightened it a little bit more off camera, so it's got as good as she was, and that's nice and tight. Exhaust isn't tight, or the exhaust is now tight. So something kind of cool to straighten out the exhaust tips. You can rotate the pipes down here, which I did not know. Rotate them a little bit. We'll kind of straighten them out inside of the housings down there. So that's kind of cool. Didn't know that. Would make my life easier. Had to know that back when I was installing this stuff. Anyway, on the other side now. So this side, we got our new hardware in for our exhaust. So I went ahead and did grade 8 bolts. Prior they were a grade 5 and it rusted out and one of them snapped and I took it off. So that's good now. Tucked up all our wiring. Everything's good now. I didn't realize how close this was to this exhaust, old exhaust hanger. So it's not really touching, but you know, it's a little weird. I did try and do my best to squeeze exhaust up underneath the car. This headers and X-pipe setup has a tendency to like kind of droop a little bit in the middle, and it makes it real difficult to go over speed bumps and whatnot as low as the car is. But yeah, cleaned up underneath the transmission. So it's not a perfect chemical bath, but it's definitely in good shape. Got rid of the Shea brace, went back to the old one. It was just transmitting too much noise, and now that it's basically fixed, I don't think it's going to be a problem for what it was. It's supposed to keep everything from twisting, but honestly, I'd rather do motor mounts if it comes down to that. So we'll do those in the future if that's what it winds up being. Other than that, though, I think we're done under here. So we got to still go in the car and get the rest of our MGW hooked up, and then I really think we're pretty damn close to this thing being done. All right, we go ahead and work on the interior now. So got some parts here I need to put back, center console stuff, and obviously you saw the other video, all the stuff we took apart in here. So go ahead and start. This will be the last thing we want to put on. So take this guy back off. I just had it on here because I wanted to get an idea of what it would look like, how tall it would stick up. And it sticks up a little taller than my stock one, but nothing crazy. So put this out of here. There's a random wire hanging out. I think it goes to the radio. Try and tape that out of the way just because it's kind of weird. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get this thing back together. So first things first, actual MGW in here is nice and it's all good. Nothing crazy. Feels good. So what we're going to go ahead and do, take this plate, and this goes over top. And they give you some extra Dynamat. I'm not really interested in using that, so we're going to go ahead and stick this over top first. Line it up. Pretty simple. Make sure our cables are out of the way so we don't get any of those caught up. It's for our line lock. That sits nice and flat. And then I think it's off-centered. I know there's orientation to this, but out of the hole's off-centered, which it looks like it is. See if that's better. It looks like they cut the hole off center, so that's not going to affect anything. Never mind. So anyway, then we take our actual MGW cover plate. That's going to go on top of here. Just going to get these cables out of the way, one-handed. All right, we're going to go switch over to two hands, get this thing all lined up. All right, well, it's back together. So I'm gonna get this thing hooked up real quick. This is it. Pretty happy with it. I just felt it. Feels real nice. I think it looks pretty good. It goes the rest of the end of the car quite nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing down next, and then we'll go ahead and well, I guess it's about time to start it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it down off camera. And then once she's down, I think tomorrow, because it's pretty late tonight, go ahead and get it started up. Make sure it goes through all the gears, make sure our brakes get pumped up, all that fun stuff. But we're just about there. Holy crap, I forgot what it feels like to have this thing not be a damn monster truck. But that was extremely sketchy feeling. It worked out. What I'm doing is dropping the front first, leaving the back up in the air. Got my jack out of the way, and then did the rear. But yeah, definitely sus. Anyway, best way I found to do this, get it up on a little bit of blocks of wood or ramps or something. Right in the center of the K member, I put a block of wood on top of my jack to make sure it doesn't damage the metal. And I can go up and down relatively easily. It has a little bit of friction to make sure nothing slips too. So literally the last thing I gotta do is go ahead and put my battery back on. Hopefully it won't blow up instantaneously. And then that's about it. Should be ready for a start like any other. Yeah, keep it in neutral, clutch and everything, and you should be all right. The biggest thing I gotta do is pump up the brakes, because right now they are not doing any brake stuff. Clean up a little bit more, and I think she's about there. Pretty freaking excited. So it's the next day. My brakes are not pumped up, so I can't use my e-brake right now, so obviously I have some wood trucks back there, but we're gonna go ahead and start this thing up. So it's probably gonna idle a little weird at first. This car, whenever it has battery disconnected, does have a little weird idle thing. Let it warm up, kind of see how it feels, and should be awesome. So this first drive isn't gonna be this video, but we're definitely gonna go ahead and get this thing, you know, warmed up, make sure everything shifts into the gears, doesn't sound super weird, and make sure she's good. So let's go. Can't tell if I haven't had it on for a bit. It does feel a little bit like fuzzy, which is, can't tell if maybe it's because I shifted the exhaust up more. So let me get this out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and back it off the ramps. Holy crap, it moved. So, I'm sure you just saw me stall the hell out. The clutch engagement, I'm talking like, is way different. So, my old clutch engagement was like pretty close to the top. This engage is real low, which I think is better. But you don't slip, I'll tell you that right now. So, I have to get used to driving the clutch a good bit. I have to redo I just pulled that up a second ago because my little ground cable came off the IAT or intercooler pump, so I just put that back on. And yeah, she's getting there though. Sounds freaking good. Chopping, see how even my exhausts are. That one's pretty good. That one needs to go that way a hair, but all in all, not bad. Got our even, they're sticking out about even, so good there. It did move though, so we're good. So let me adjust that IAT Q2 or intercooler adjustment real quick. I just need to tighten the connector, put it back on, and I think we're okay. This is freaking wild. I'm glad it moved. So shifter feels great. Let's go ahead and get this thing back together. All right, well, you guys just saw it moving around a little bit. So I haven't done any drives yet or anything. Just pull it out and put it back in. You saw me stall out the dang thing like 3 or 4 times. The clutch engagement, let me go ahead and hop in the car real quick, but it's significantly different than what it used to be. So let me get down in here real quick and show you what's going on. So just right off the rip, first things first, going into reverse with the car on anyway, goes right in like it's nothing. I'm guessing with the car off, the reverse lockout might be engaged, so it just takes a little bit more effort. But yeah, going into reverse is super easy. It used to be a battle, and I mean a battle to get into reverse. I'd be pushing against my seat, trying to get my arm straight and locked and trying to get it over. So goes right in, no problem. That's nice. First, second, third, fourth, yeah, fourth, fifth, sixth, easy day. Everything feels good there. I thought I saw a dinger on here for a second. But yeah, so, and then clutch engagement down here. So, pardon my dirty ass shoes, but so it used to be probably about here, this range that it would engage, and then it'd be up at the top. Now, about quarter way off the floor, right about there, she's starting to engage pretty hard, and the last top of the pedal doesn't seem to do as much, which is fine. So I don't know if it's a combo between the new slave bearing, or slave cylinder / throw-up bearing, for the new fluid, and the additional clutch material we have now in the RXT1200 from the old one that was worn down. But yeah, pretty freaking awesome. So I cannot tell you how much of a stress reliever it is to know that this thing's back together. Whatever that buzzing thing was, I think doesn't seem to be a problem. I noticed didn't feel it after a while, and I think it was either just everything kind of moving for the first time, or it could have been potentially the exhaust might be rubbing on something down there. So I'll check that out later if it sticks around. Originally I thought it was maybe a balance issue with the clutch, but I think it's good. We're just overthinking it. It's fine. So other than that though, I'm pretty damn I'm happy with it. So hopefully I'm not speaking too soon. We'll have to do some testing. You guys will see the first drive next video and kind of see how it does. But I'm excited. The only thing I'm not excited about is trying to reload this clutch. I'm going to look like an amateur stick driver for a little bit because I'm going to be stalling this thing out every 10 seconds. I can already feel it until we get that engagement down. But yeah, very, very happy with the MGW. Happy with the new clutch. It feels so far extremely smooth compared to what it was. It was so bad. Like if I had gone from this at first and then hopped into my old car, I'd be like, your thing's broken. So I'm excited. I can't wait to go ahead and test this thing out for real. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.